What is up guys, my name is Chase, and what do I have in common with the Nintendo GameCube and the Wii U? We were all disappointments. Nintendo has become one of the greats in video gaming, from their OG consoles like the Nintendo Entertainment System, till even today with the Nintendo Switch. But that's not to say that Nintendo has had quite a few oopsies in their life. Actually, maybe a lot of oopsies in their life. And today we are specifically going to look at two of Nintendo's biggest home console failures, the Nintendo GameCube and the Nintendo Wii U. It's pretty clear to see that these two home consoles were not some of Nintendo's successes. The Nintendo GameCube ended up selling 21.74 million units in hardware sales and 208.58 million units in software sales, which compared to their previous generation, the Nintendo 64, that console also wasn't one of Nintendo's biggest successes, but it still outperformed the Nintendo GameCube with 32.93 million units in hardware sales and 224.97 million units in software sales. And then when we look at the Wii U, it's just outright sad, with just 13.56 million units in hardware sales and 103.6 million units in software sales. When you compare that to the previous generation, the Nintendo Wii, it's not even a competition. The Wii, of course, sold like hotcakes, selling 101.63 million units in hardware sales and 921.85 million units in software sales. So today we are going to put the Nintendo GameCube and the Nintendo Wii U head to head and try to figure out which one is the best of the worst. For round one, let's compare the design of the consoles themselves. Let's start off with the console design of the Nintendo GameCube. This is such a classic design for a video game console in my opinion. The design is as simple as the name itself. The GameCube is a cube of gaming. I will say though that the Nintendo GameCube still kind of has this sort of kitty looking design. The original GameCube came in color variants of black or purple, and especially with the purple GameCube, it just kind of gives off baby square vibes. There's also a handle built into the back of the GameCube, which I guess ideally would be so that you could bring your GameCube around. Like, it's so small and portable that it's easy to bring to other places. But I don't know, this handle just kind of makes it look like a kid's lunchbox. There were also some variations to the GameCube's console design. The big one in particular being that later GameCube models got rid of the digital AV out port, which was kind of a bummer because the digital AV out port allowed you to connect a component cable rather than composite. Granted, I didn't even know anybody with a TV capable of component input. For me, it was always just the standard composite red, white, and yellow cables. But nowadays, there are some accessories that allow you to connect your GameCube to an HDMI cable, which is much easier accessible in today's world. However, you are going to need that original GameCube model with the digital AV out port. Another bummer with the GameCube is that it is prone to malfunction, especially because of the fact that the GameCube is much older. In my personal experience, I've had some troubles with my original GameCube. The main issue that I've been seeing with a lot of GameCubes recently is the optical laser lens failing. And listen, I'm no scientist, so I can't tell you all of the ins and outs about this problem, but basically, as I understand it, the disc reader inside of the GameCube just goes bad after a while, and pretty much the only way to fix it is to open up the GameCube and do some tinkering inside. I can barely handle building Legos, so there's no way I'm gonna try to open up a GameCube. But overall, I think the GameCube is a very sturdy feeling cube. It reminds me a lot of like old Nokia phones. You know, the old phones where you could like throw it off of a building and it would still be working just fine. The GameCube just feels like a hefty little baby that won't break or scratch too easily. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Nintendo Wii U. Personally, I do like the overall look of the Wii U. On its own, I think the Wii U console looks pretty sleek and sophisticated. However, one of the biggest problems with the design of the Wii U is that it looked like just a redesigned Wii on its side. Especially when the Wii U was first revealed and we didn't know much about the Wii U, only the controller. It was really confusing to a lot of people, myself included, whether or not this was an actual new console or just a Wii accessory. And then we move on to my biggest gripe with the Wii U. Why the heck does this thing have to be glossy? I guess maybe maybe they were trying to stick with the vibe of the original Wii where that was also glossy, but especially with the Wii U Deluxe set, not only the console but the gamepad as well just collect so many scratches and so many fingerprints. Literally just by unboxing the console, you get a bunch of scratches on it already. And just to be fair, the Wii U was also prone to quite a few malfunctions as well. I've seen people with Wii U's where the fans would malfunction, causing a lot of overheating issues with the Wii U. More recently, news came out that if you didn't turn on your Wii U for a long time, it could straight up just brick your console. So overall, when it comes to console design, I have to give that point to the Nintendo GameCube. For round 2, we're gonna take a look at the built-in features for each of these consoles. The GameCube had a very simple operating system, which for the time that it was released, it worked perfectly fine. It's not like today where devices just throw everything in your face at once, but also with competing consoles like the PlayStation 2 or the Sega Dreamcast, they were offering some kind of internet capabilities at the time, which for the most part was kind of lacking in Nintendo's GameCube. But I do like how straightforward and just to the point the GameCube's operating system is. You hop into the settings of your GameCube and you can just easily find whatever you need to look for. I will say though that this operating system does leave a bit more to be desired. There's no like fun background music or fun visuals on the screen. It's literally just a cube floating in a void, which honestly even today feels a little bit creepy to me. Like as a kid, I was honestly terrified every time the GameCube would go into its actual operating system. And speaking of which, I will say that it was a bit difficult to actually find the operating system of the GameCube. Whenever the actual operating system of the GameCube popped up, it always felt like a little secret Easter egg that I was finding. But yeah, for the most part, the GameCube's operating system is no nonsense, just straight to the point. What are you trying to do with your GameCube? On the other hand, the Wii U's operating system feels very just fun and cozy in my opinion. You get that really chill, almost like underwater vibes with the background music and all of the menus. The Wii U eShop music absolutely slaps. And overall, with all of the visual elements as well, it just feels very fun and lighthearted. I always loved the rounded edges of the UI. It very much sparks joy in playing video games in my opinion. That's not to say that there weren't problems with the Wii U's operating system. The absolute biggest issue I have with the Wii U's operating system is the load times. Geez Louise, the load times when you're just trying to navigate the menus on the Wii U are ridiculous. When the Wii U first launched in 2012, it was incredibly boring just going from the home menu to the system settings. And especially when your console is brand new and you just want to set up all of the different settings, it's really annoying having to hop between the system settings and the home menu on the Wii U, especially when it launched. Nintendo did eventually release 2 system updates that were meant to fix the load times of the Wii U's operating system, even going as far to release a comparison video of the load times, as if to say, yeah, we're sorry that we messed up. But I'm not gonna lie, even after the system update, the Wii U loading time was just absolutely ridiculous. Just to show you how long and annoying the load times are, let's compare going to the system settings on Wii U to going to system settings on the Nintendo Switch. I'm sorry, but anytime I'm able to rant about the load times on the Wii U, I will just rant your ear off about it. The Wii U also had some random quirky features built into the operating system, some of which were pretty short-lived and were eventually scrapped. For example, Nintendo TV, as well as the Miiverse. But in my opinion, one of the best additional features they threw into the Wii U operating system is the internet browser. This, in my opinion, is probably the best internet browser on any home console ever. And of course, it's mainly due to the fact that you just have this gamepad controller, which allows you to navigate the web on the actual touchscreen. You're also able to share online videos from the gamepad onto the TV, which I always had a fun time busting out at parties just to show off videos of dogs or something. And hey, another really cool built-in feature of the Wii U was that you could actually play Wii games as well. Granted, the way that they did this was a little bit clunky. In order to play Wii games, you would have to go into the Wii Wii mode on the Wii U. It basically just reboots your Wii U into a Wii, but it did at least mean that you were getting the most true representation of an actual Wii, since it basically is just a built-in Wii. Meanwhile, with the GameCube, it only supported GameCube proprietary discs. On one hand, it made GameCube games harder to pirate, which I guess is good for developers. Also, just look how absolutely adorable these discs are. However, since the discs were so small, it meant that it was harder to fit larger games onto, which then meant that third-party developers had a harder time making games for the GameCube. And hey, the PlayStation 2 just straight up supported playing DVDs on the system. But obviously with the GameCube, no DVDs, not even music CDs, which is a real bummer. So in the end, when it comes to built-in features, I think the point goes to the Wii U. For round 3, let's talk controllers. After the Nintendo 64 had a controller that you could barely even call a controller, let's hope that Nintendo gets their act together and just gives us a basic video game controller. I'm just kidding, I actually love the GameCube controller. In fact, in my best video game controllers of all time video, I called the Nintendo GameCube controller one of my favorites. I absolutely love how the GameCube controller just sinks right into your hand almost naturally. All of the little grooves and crevices on this controller just feel perfect. The buttons on this controller work perfectly for the games that were designed with this system in mind. You have the giant green A button, which is most often used as your main button in a lot of games. You have the tiny little B button on the bottom, and up until recently I did not even realize that the X button sits on the X axis of the controller, while the Y button sits on the Y axis of the controller. This button layout is far from normal, but with games such as Super Smash Bros. Melee or Mario Party, I honestly could not imagine playing those classic games with anything else besides a GameCube controller. You also have pressure-sensitive L and R buttons, which work great for games like Luigi's Mansion or Super Mario Sunshine. With all of that being said though, I will admit that the GameCube controller is not perfect. For one thing, the D-pad is way too small. It pretty much makes playing 2D platformers on the GameCube feel almost impossible. Once again, while the button layout does work perfectly for games that were designed with the GameCube in mind, when you try to play side-scrollers or classic games, it just does not feel right. The Z button on the back, why is there only one of them? And the C stick feels like a tiny little nipple, which does not work the best for first-person games, which were becoming very popular at the time. Then we move on to the cluster truck that is the Wii U compatible controllers. The two main Wii U controllers you'll find are, of course, the Wii U gamepad, which is included with the Wii U and is basically the main gimmick of the console, but you also get a more standard controller with the Wii U Pro controller. Now, the Wii U was also compatible with some legacy controllers, mainly the Wii Remote and Nunchuck. And this is where things start to get really messy. On one hand, it meant that pretty much all of the Wii accessories were now compatible with your fancy new console. It was nice that you didn't have that pressure to buy all new controllers for your brand new system. Granted, it did mean that Nintendo did not include any Wii Remote Pluses in the box and they just assumed that you had some lying around, but it also created a nightmare regarding which games were compatible with which controllers. Some games were only compatible with the Wii Remote and not the Nunchuck. For example, some of the attractions in Nintendo Land, you could only use the Wii Remote on its side, and plus you had to make sure that you were using the Wii Remote Plus and not the regular Wii Remotes. And listen, if you're watching this video, I kind of assume that you're probably like me and spend way too much time dedicated to this company, so hey, I think we get it in terms of which controllers are compatible with the Wii U. But you also have to think about grandma going out to buy little Timmy's Christmas presents. She's probably not gonna know what the heck a Wii Remote Plus is. So yeah, in my opinion, although the Wii U was pretty much compatible with every controller under the sun, I think the controller compatibility ends up being too confusing for its own good. And I think for that reason alone, I'm going to give the point to the Nintendo GameCube. And speaking of controllers, for round 4, let's take a look at some of the accessories that you could get for each of these consoles. When it comes to accessories, I think both of these consoles had their fair share of very useful accessories, while also honestly having some useless crap. I think the absolute best accessory that was released for the Nintendo GameCube was the Game Boy Player. This was a very interesting accessory that would allow you to play Game Boy games on the actual GameCube, which maybe we take for granted today, but just imagine if Nintendo ended up making an accessory that allowed you to play 3DS games on your Nintendo Switch. I mean, that's obviously something that everybody and their mother has been asking for. So the fact that the Game Boy Player even exists, I think is really cool. I mean, there were some limitations with the Game Boy Player. You couldn't play your Game Boy Advance video cartridges on the Game Boy Player for obvious copyright reasons. If you had a Game Boy game that supported tilt controls, you would just have to tilt the entire GameCube. But overall, you get to play nearly the entire Game Boy library on a TV, which is just really awesome. As we mentioned earlier, the GameCube not only had composite cables, but they did also have component cables, which gave you a much clearer image. There was also the wireless Wavebird controller, which meant that we could finally get rid of these stupid cables. However, as I mentioned before, the GameCube had its fair share of weird useless crap. One of which was the DK Bongos. This was a bongo controller accessory that was only compatible with the Donkey Konga games and Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. There was also the GameCube microphone, which once again was only compatible with a handful of games, including Mario Party 6 and 7. Now with the Wii U, that also had its fair share of weird useless crap. Funny enough, the Wii U also had its own Wii U microphone, which was mainly meant to release alongside the game Sing Party, but hey, it's a basic USB microphone that can pretty much work with any game that uses a microphone. But besides that, the Wii U was pretty clear from any useless accessories. I mean, there was so much crap just packed into the gamepad controller itself that accessories were probably not even needed for the console. For example, just with the Wii U Deluxe set, we got the Wii U gamepad stand, the Wii U gamepad cradle, and the Wii U console stands. There was also this weird stand that came with the game Wii Party U, which just allowed you to play some gamepad only games just like in the original trailer of the Wii U. But yeah, we did end up getting some useful accessories for the Wii U, such as some gamepad battery accessories, even including a larger capacity battery from Nintendo themselves, which was made to make the gamepad's battery life actually somewhat tolerable. And of course, as we mentioned, the Wii U was also compatible with all Wii accessories, which meant that you could use the Wii balance board with Wii Fit U, you could use accessories that plugged into the Wii Remote's expansion ports, such as classic controllers, and they even went on to release Wii U branded Wii Remote Plus controllers. One of my favorites being the special Mario line of Wii Remote Plus controllers that were released around the time of Super Mario 3D World. And of course, we can't talk about Wii U accessories without mentioning the GameCube controller adapter. This straight up just allowed you to use classic GameCube controllers with Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Or hey, you could even get the brand new Smash Bros. For Wii U GameCube controller from Nintendo themselves, complete with an extra long cable. So in the end, when you kind of compare the accessories that were released for these two consoles, I think the Wii U had the higher percentage of actual useful accessories, and the fact that you could straight up just plug in a GameCube controller and play Smash Bros. For Wii U, I think the Wii U gets the point for accessories. And finally, it's time for the main event. Round 5. Let's take a look at the actual games for each of these consoles. Now this is where things are going to get really interesting. First off, let me just give a warning. When it comes to talking about games, I'm just talking about my own personal preferences. Of course, most of you watching this video probably have different gaming preferences than me, so just keep that in mind. Both the GameCube and the Wii U's game libraries are very interesting. Funny enough, both of these consoles suffered in their third-party support. Developers had a hard time making games for both the GameCube and the Wii U. On the GameCube side of things, it was because of the smaller proprietary GameCube discs. Meanwhile, with the Wii U, developers had to figure out how to make use of this whole new gamepad controller. So during the GameCube era, PlayStation and Xbox players got way bigger and more revolutionary games such as Call of Duty, while us Nintendo GameCube players got such games as Cars the video game, Disney's Hide and Seek, and who could forget Bratz Rock Angels. Now I'm not gonna lie, 7 or 8-year-old me absolutely loved Cars the video game game on GameCube, but it was pretty clear that the GameCube was missing out on some of the hot new games that the other consoles were getting. But hey, we did get some cool third-party offerings on the GameCube. Particularly, it was the first time Sega games were on a Nintendo console, so we ended up getting a handful of Sonic games, Super Monkey Ball games, and Phantasy Star Online games. Now, in terms of third-party support on the Wii U, it did actually start out pretty good. The Wii U launched with games such as Assassin's Creed 3, Mass Effect 3, and Call of Duty Black Ops 2, which in my opinion actually made some pretty good use of the gamepad. However, over time, third-party support started slipping to the point where it was noticeably absent. Ubisoft delayed their Wii U exclusive game Rayman Legends and ended up releasing it multi-platform. There was also the hyped-up game Project Cars, which was supposed to be like the technical showcase for the Wii U. However, as time went on, the Wii U version was just straight up cancelled. And that meant with both of these consoles, they were going to have to rely on Nintendo's first-party games to make up for the lack of third-party support. Starting with the Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo absolutely delivered with their first-party games. During the entire lifespan of the GameCube, we ended up getting a brand new entry, or sometimes even multiple entries, for pretty much every Nintendo franchise. There were 3 brand new Zelda games released, 4 Swords, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess, and that's not even including the re-releases, such as Ocarina of Time with the Master Quest. Of course, nowadays, Zelda games are very few and far between, so the fact that we got 3 of them on the GameCube, I think is pretty incredible. We also got 4 new Mario Party games, which I mean, considering that it's Mario Party, it might feel like a bit overkill, but still pretty cool. We got not just 1, but 2 Metroid Prime games, which also just so happened to be the first introduction of the 3D Metroid Prime games. Fast forward to today, we're probably gonna have to wait 100 years for Metroid Prime 4 to come out. And speaking of Nintendo franchises that got their start on GameCube, we also saw the first 2 Pikmin games released on the GameCube. And that's just the beginning, because we also got a bunch of new Mario games. There was Kirby Air Ride, and so much more. So it really felt like Nintendo just went all in with GameCube games. And now let's turn to the Wii U. Unfortunately, first-party games on the Wii U were pretty hit or miss. We did get some excellent games for the Wii U, such as Mario Kart 8 and Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. However, there were also some totally fine offerings on the Wii U. For example, Super Mario 3D World. While that is a very high-quality game, it definitely had a bit of a confused reaction when everybody was expecting a new sandbox type of 3D Mario game such as Super Mario Sunshine. There was Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, an incredible 2D platformer, but might not felt as expansive and revolutionary as some other games. And unfortunately, there were quite a few low-quality titles on the Wii U, which was very uncharacteristic of Nintendo. We sadly had to suffer through games such as Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, and Star Fox Zero. At the time, it just felt like Nintendo was throwing rubbish out in order to get new games on the Wii U. They definitely did not live up to the high-quality standards that Nintendo usually has. So looking at the game library on the GameCube and the Wii U, both consoles have their share of very high-quality titles, but it just felt like Nintendo was firing on all cylinders during the GameCube era. So the final point goes to GameCube. So there you have it. Our winner for today is the Nintendo GameCube. Having grown up with both of these consoles in my life, I think it's really interesting to compare these two consoles, especially now that we are able to look at all of the sales numbers for each of them. I mean, even though these are 2 of the worst performing Nintendo home consoles, I still have so much nostalgia and so much sentimental value for both the GameCube and the Wii U. But let me know in the comments, which one do you guys think is the winner, the GameCube or the Wii U? If you guys want to see my 10-year retrospective of the Wii U, check it out below. For now, thank you so much for watching. My name is Chase, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye!